Hi guys, welcome back. This is really a follow-on from a video I did a couple of weeks ago where I changed that on someone's drive. Basically it let me down on a road trip, and since that video I've been kind of mulling over what to do with the suspension legs. Now there are a number of videos out there, people showing you how to use spring compressors to replace components and all the rest of it. My advice to you is absolutely under no circumstances do that. Those spring compressors are deadly. They are called Widowmakers for a reason. It's not a joke. They are really, really dangerous pieces of kit. So my advice to you is get a replacement strut. Now, as it turns out, if I'd ordered all the parts for this, the shock absorber, the spring, the strut, everything else, to actually assemble that myself or replace components would have cost me about 250 quid in parts. That's for the left and the right hand side. Spring compressor, the sort that you just clamp onto the side of the springs and wind up. 2 or 3 clamps in a kit, they're about 60 or 80 quid. A workshop compressor, hydraulic compressor, maybe 300 quid. So all in all, not really worth it when you consider that you can get a pair of these for about 170 quid. So completely new everything, replacement to everything. The bearing on the top there, brand new. They even give you the little clamp for the ABS sensor, depending on which side you want to put it. So I've got 2 of these things, and it is a 10-minute job tops to switch these over. That's what we're going to be doing today. So anyway, quick piece of advice there: under no circumstances mess around with spring compressors. These things are lethal. Just get a replacement unit and just bolt it on. 3 bolts at the top, 2 bolts at the bottom. Those 2 bolts at the bottom are a 21 on one side and a 19 on the other. 19 on the bolt, 21 on the nut. There's another one down here. And at the top we have these 3 nuts that just need spinning off there. And after that, this leg will just drop out. Now there's a couple of other things to be mindful of. One is the ABS sensor. We don't want to damage that, so I'll just roll that out of its little plastic grommet thing here that keeps it tied in. And I need to release the top end of this drop link. This is the link that goes onto the end of the anti-roll bar, anti-sway bar. Okay, so first job is to get this drop link off. Now I've done this a few times on the channel, but I'm going to do it again here just to show you what's going on. On the rotor, I have reattached 3 of the wheel lugs. The reason for that is because otherwise the whole of the force of the exercise is going to be held on by this tiny little 10mm bolt here, and they shear. So in order to hold the rotor solid so that we can use it as a point to do some real work, I've pinned that back on just using the wheel bolts. Now I've got another little jack here underneath the rotor itself, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just apply a little bit of pressure here just to raise this up in order to release the tension on that drop link. That will then allow me to spin that 19mm bolt off and just push the thing backwards. Now this is a problem because I've got it jacked up just on one side. So the anti-roll bar is doing its job. It's basically trying to correct the vehicle. It's low on one side, so it's pushing down high on the other. The bar itself rocks from side to side to try and level things out. So anyway, it's doing its job, but working against me, and this is something that you'll often find if you're working just on one corner of a car that has an anti-roll bar or anti-sway bar installed on the end that you're working on. So with the jack under that wheel, I'm just going to raise it up very slightly. You can see it going there. Now what that's doing is it's releasing the tension that's on this bar that was basically forcing the bar upwards, which points the nut downwards. And we should, by spinning this off and then on and then off and then on, be able to spin it off. Okay, so I'm just going to finish the job off here, push it up a little bit more so that you can see what's going on. You see how that's moving as I raise the wheel up, just release the tension from the system. That will allow me then to just push that back. Okay, so that's how you get the end of the drop link out and out of the way. We don't need to take the bottom off, just need to get that one out of the strut. Okay, so we've got the drop link removed, got the ABS sensor nicely out of the way. So at this point, I'm going to release the second jack here and lower that wheel back down, because I don't want to be fighting against any pressure in that spring. Okay, so I'm just going to release that completely and let that set on the lower control arm. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to remove the 2 bolts. So that just means I'm going to need probably a breaker bar with the 21 and a ratchet to hold the 19 just to get those off. And when they're off, we'll just push those bolts out and the whole thing will just kind of sit forward, and then we'll be able to move the end of the suspension strut here just out the way, and then it'll just be hanging on the 3 nuts at the top. Okay, that'll do. So that's both of those 2 nuts loosened. I've said it before and I'll say it again, you need one of these if you're even halfway serious about home mechanics. Any brand will do. And just a little bit of pressure on the side here, just push the whole assembly over. They should just pop out. 2 of them, and they're identical. Keep those in a safe place. Now I'm just going to pull this forwards. I'm just using a little jemmy here. I'm just going to separate those out. And then this, I'll just move over to the side. It's a good idea actually to remove the little rubber clip for the ABS sensor from the back of the wheel arch as well. Just keep it all out of the way, and that'll just give us enough movement. Notice that the drop link here goes in between the ABS cable and the strut, and there is the end of the strut completely separated and effectively held in place only at this point by the 3 nuts at the top. To be specific, these 3. They are 13mm. Keep them in a safe place. I'm just going to take one all the way off and then just thread it back on a little. You'll see why in a sec. That's in a safe place. And there's the reason that I put one back on. As soon as you've done that, the leg is free to move. So I'm just going to support this with my right hand. I'll do this last one by hand. And then down here, being super careful not to damage the ABS cable, I'm going to lower it down, bring the top over, and feed it out. And that's it. You can hear the bearing on that, that's not a great look. And that is the shock absorber that's seen better days as well. Okay, on with the new one. Now on the top of this, there's a warning label that says, under compression, do not remove, serious injury may result. And they're not kidding. Really do not muck around with these things, they'll take your head off. Now, there is one thing I'm going to need to put on afterwards, and that's the little plastic nubbins that the ABS sensor plugs into. But in the first instance, I just need to slide this up in through the wheel arch and get it all lined up again. You can hear the difference straight away. Nothing wrong with that bearing at all. The other one was completely wrecked. So definitely something worth considering if you're having handling issues or got some weird noises and clonks and bonks coming from the front corners. Anyway, let's get this fed back up. Now before you do anything else, take the nuts off the top. Otherwise you'll fit it, wrestle against the weight of the thing, and then you'll have to take it off again anyway. And they go in a safe place. Okay, so now to reinstall, feed the end of the strut in between the end of the track rod end and the prop shaft, or the drive shaft rather. Drop it in, make sure you're not damaging the ABS cable. Just move you up so you can see what's going on. And with that in that location, you can just feed it in. And then with it in this position, you push it up and locate those bolts through the top. This is a bit of a tricky job. Helpful to have a spare pair of hands if you've got one. It's not the end of the world if you don't have a spare pair of hands, but you do just need one of those nuts handy so that when you do finally get it in position, you can just let it hang on that one nut and put the others neatly in place. So that's the top end. Before I torque those up, I'm going to get the bottom relocated. Okay, so just as before, make sure everything lines up nicely. My recommendation is to get the bottom one in first, if you possibly can. And it is super helpful to have some kind of implement, give it a bit of encouragement. And they can be a little bit awkward to locate. But you'll get there in the end. So that's wiggled around. The bottom one just about locates now. And there it is. Perfect. To get the top one in, just lean on the top of the rotor here. It'll pivot around the end of the track rod arm, and that will allow you to then just pop this in place. Okay, so we're just going to tighten these back on, 19 on the left to secure, 21 for the impact. And I will torque those up in a moment. If you're wondering what the torque settings are, by the way, I'll spin them up on the screen. This is from the Haynes manual. And then just as before, I'm going to use the little trolley jack under there just to raise this up enough that we can pop the end of the link, drop link there, the sway bar link, anti-roll bar link, whatever you want to call it. We just need to make sure that that is good and secure, so you can see how far up I need to bring this to comfortably adjust, and this is going to be compressing the spring, so you know, helps to have a couple of trolley jacks around, although you could use any kind of jack to do this really. It's just easier if you've got that little cup on the top of it. And these are decent drop links. It's always worth checking, make sure they're good and stiff. If it's all floppy, then stick a new one on there, only about 17 quid. And this is a 19, I think. Yeah, 19. Smaller at the other end. Okay, so that's served its purpose. Can let that back down now. Get rid of that extra little trolley jack. Now in the bag with the little plastic doofo for the ABS cable, you get two little pegs, and those little pegs go into these holes that are drilled through. They're a bit fiddly to get in, but that pushes through on the other side and locks it in place. It's kind of like the clips that you get on the inside of door cards. Let's say super fiddly to get in. A pair of long nose pliers could help, but once you've got them in, just push those in with the end of a socket or whatever. And I'm just going to use the end of the short extension bar here just to tap those home. And then with that seated in place, we can just roll the ABS sensor back in. Bit of grease can help with this, but I'm just going to squish this just to get it in there. And of course the same on the back. Didn't really need to take the one out the back, but just made life a tiny little bit easier. Okay, so then we're back up to the top. As I say, I'll torque these properly in a minute. And that's it. One completely replaced strut, near enough in real time. And just one last job to do. I'll pop this plastic cap off the end of here and reinstate it. There you go, job done. So there you go, a few bolts later, one completely box fresh strut and the old tatty one going to the tip in the morning. So there you go, no need to spend a clean fortune, no need to risk your life. These things are relatively cheap. As I say, both sides 165 quid for the pair plus the VAT, shipped to me in a couple of days. So just have a look on eBay. I think you will be surprised. As I say, if I'd bought just the parts to recondition that, even if it could have been reconditioned, even if I could have safely clamped something onto these springs, which I very much doubt, to compress it, it wouldn't have saved me any money anyway. There you go. So back off the soapbox. Hope that's been useful to you today. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by making you watch me put the wheel back on. You know how to do that. But hope that's been handy. If it has, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Cheers.